We are all to present our lives a living sacrifice, and that's just reasonable. That's not anything special. Not all of us are called to be missionaries. That's a special calling that God gives to certain people. But we are each called according to his purpose. We are all members of one body, and each member has a role. Let's flip to Psalm 141. We'll take a look at verse 2. And it says there, "Let my prayer be set before you as incense. The lifting up of my hands is the evening sacrifice." So we see that praying is one aspect of becoming a living sacrifice to God. In 1 Corinthians, Paul writes, "For you were bought at a price, therefore glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's." Thus we are to present our bodies and our spirits to God while yet alive as living sacrifices. Because as Christians we no longer belong to the world, but we belong to God. In 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 5, Peter writes, "You also, as living stones, are being built up a spiritual house, a holy priesthood, to offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ." We are all living stones. Think about that now. Living stones in a spiritual house, built on the foundation, of course, of the apostles and the prophets, with Jesus Christ as our chief cornerstone, and also as our high priest. Consider this. Think of all the people with their prayers and their lives dedicated to the Lord, who are the living stones on which we are being laid this day. Think back now. There were those who were saved by Jesus through Jesus' direct ministry. You can think of all the people. Zacchaeus, the tax man, for instance. There was a lame man who was lowered through the roof by his friends. There was one leper who came back to thank him. You can recall Stephen, the first Christian martyr. As time has continued, there have been more of these living stones. In the early centuries, beyond the time of the writing of the Bible, there were times of persecution against Christians. And one historian notes that many Christians were nailed to crosses. Some were sewn up in skins of wild beasts, used as human torches, being set afire. Some were cast to the lions and others beheaded. Later on in the 16th century, there were these two men who praised God with their last breath as they were being burned at the stake for their faith. The author of Pilgrim's Progress was cast into prison for his faith. All these are living stones, living sacrifices. In more recent times, in 1956, 5 missionaries were speared to death in Ecuador by these Indians who really needed the love of Jesus Christ. And in 1981, a missionary was killed in Colombia by terrorists. And just last year, a pastor in Iran was executed because he loved Jesus Christ. Consider those living stones, those living sacrifices, whose prayers have caused you to become a living stone. What prayers of Paul the Apostle have you become an answer to? Paul's prayers are written down. Which prayers have you become an answer to? What prayers of Martin Luther, who declared that we are justified by our faith? What prayers of his have you become an answer to? What prayers of Reverend Billy Graham have you become an answer to? Who will be built into the spiritual house, this holy priesthood, because of your prayers and your faithfulness? We are to glorify God with our prayers and with our lives. We're to be living sacrifices. And one great result of this is that we will bear fruit, and God will provide the increase.